So thank you so much for having me back, SPJ. Love to be here. I don't know if I missed the introduction that I'm the 2006 batch here. So there's a little bit of a sense of mischief here when I'm standing here as a student, but lovely to be here otherwise. I'm also nervous for two reasons. One, of course, coming after Pinaki, who's talking about empathy in a chip and saving humanity from mosquito bites. And then the many speakers coming after me. So that makes me nervous, and also that ticking clock there. I thought I had 15 minutes, but it's already showing 9.5. So I'm going to rush a few things through. I'm going to talk about infrastructure thinking. So think of me as a guy who's building like a digital plumber or building digital roads. So when you see a cool Ferrari, I said, yeah, that needs a great road. That's how I think. So when everybody is building an AI Ferrari, I'm trying to get the roads up for a country like India. So that's what I do. I've owed this to a lot of learning that I've got, of course, here in the institute, but also after institute, I've been doing some work since Aadhaar and all the work that's DPI. So that's kind of enriched my learning. So quickly getting on to this, and great, thank you. Looking for the clicker. So I'm going to show you three things. So maintaining the tradition of unannounced quizzes in SPJN, right? So first thing, what do you think could be common between a COVID virus and UPI? Have I done this before here? I don't think so. Yeah? What do you think would be common? Yeah? You have to match the professor's answers, otherwise you're not getting your marks, right? One of the few things, if you know, COVID is a single-strand DNA that wreaked havoc on the planet, right? A single-strand DNA wreaked havoc on the planet. That's number one. UPI is a one-page open specification, just a page and a half maybe. So what is about these small footprints that creates these diabolical changes at a population scale? Yeah? There's another thing that's common between them. If only humans knew how not to breathe for 6 minutes, we would not have had pandemic. But the fact that we couldn't, we had to go through this hitting the plates and staying home, right? Because human breath is the only medium through which it spread. It spread to become a pandemic. What do you think is that medium for UPI? It's a bigger pandemic of sorts. It's all there in your pockets, right? Mobile phones. The fact that it created a way to propagate itself because you all have a habit of using mobile phones, which is why UPI today is not so much of a technology. It's a population scale habit. It's irresistible. I'm sure all of you use UPI in your daily lives. So that's one perspective I want to leave you with. Scale. Of course, we know between garden and forest, which one has scale? Yeah, we all know forest, right? But which one needs a gardener? The garden. Now, here's an interesting thing. We are all thinking about building scalable systems, scalable business models, all of that. But it's funny that forest is a self-seeding scaling system. It does not need a gardener. It finds its own equilibrium, it finds its own scale, and scale feeds into scale. It's a very important pattern from the environment when you talk about solving things at population scale. Are we building gardens just because we love being a gardener? So this tendency about humans to design with a curating mindset. A garden is a curated creation of flora and fauna, but forest grows. Unopinionated, it grows and finds its own equilibrium. So the idea of emergence over curation. When you think about scale, actually scaling systems show natural emergence than curation. It's one of the important things when you think about designs for population scale. So that's the second perspective. Third is this thing about abundance. We are all going to be seeing a lot of abundance of AI. But one of the things about the work we did in education, one of those things when we started, and this is part of another foundation that I sort of represent here without their permission, Next Step, but as a friend, adjacent foundation to mine. So this was Diksha, the effort that India government has done to educate 250 million students, especially who don't have access to proper learning. So talking about access to learning digitally, the very obvious thing we would have thought about is to build a cool edtech app, right? We have seen the Byju's and everything, but we flipped the question. We said, what is that natural abundance that exists in the education ecosystem around which we can build a digital behavior? So when you think about using abundance, going with an abundance mindset and not a scarcity mindset, you suddenly think about using those textbooks and the teacher-pupil relationship as a natural abundance. And instead of building a smart tech app, we actually put QR codes in the textbook. And the moment we put QR codes in the textbook as a digital portal for the textbook that people already have, we saw about literally 8 scans at 8 p.m. all across the country. We were tracking the telemetry. We suddenly saw people actually scanning books at 8. And we thought, okay, this is a school textbook. I thought kids would be scanning during school time. But what was interesting is at 8 o'clock, all the government-aided schools had teachers scanning the topics, because for the first time, they were not just reading out of the book, they were actually preparing for their classes. They could find content that was more interactive. They could find another teacher talking about the same concept, like a mitochondria. A fantastic teacher in UP probably put it in YouTube, thanks to the creator economy. And she could learn better and she could teach better. So suddenly it also not became a student learning medium, it also became a teacher capacity building. And that only came because we carried an abundance mindset. So thinking about low footprint, creating an impact, having a medium of exchange, talking about scale very differently, and thinking about abundance instead of scarcity mindset are some of the things that I've learned along the way when you talk about solving for problems of complex nature. So climate change, demographic decline, energy transition, reducing energy footprint, I'm sure we have speakers talking about it, kind of are very different, complex by nature. When I say complex by nature, what do you mean by that? It's complexly shifting. The problems changes by the time you come up with a solution. It changes by context, by culture. It engenders culture, social, norms, a whole lot of things. So when you say, okay, I'm going to solve that problem, you're not going to invent a button, then you press that, the problem is going to vanish away. It's a complex in multi-dimensions way. And therefore, when you have to think about not just solving for the problem, but solving for problem at scale, sustainably, you may have to think about some of these patterns that I just spoke about. Okay, so I have 3 minutes. Wow. So I'm going to rush through. So when you think about complex problem scale challenges, normally what we do as humanity is that we throw a few instruments at it. Okay, we think about what can we do with policy and regulations, what can we do with institutional capacity building, and making us sustainability as any of those COP meetings and institutional policies and all of that. We bring capital, of course. We also think about innovations. I call it innovations that are bespoke and isolated. We'll have a fascinating permafrost technology coming up. We'll have carbon sequestration technology happening. We'll probably solve the nuclear fusion a little bit, but all of them happening in silos. So we'll have isolated innovations happening. One of the things that's missing is the infrastructure. We don't have an infrastructure thinking mindset. Okay? That medium of breathing, that medium of mobile phones, that medium of building forestry. And I see myself as a student of one such infrastructure called the internet. If you really think about internet is actually the forest. It never knew that there'll be an Amazon one day, there'll be an Airbnb one day, there'll be a ChatGPT one day. The fact that it doesn't know allows this forestry of value to get created. And I think we are at a time when we're solving complex problems like sustainability, you may want to think about infrastructure as a way of thinking. And that's what India has been doing. Like internet, we've been building UPI, ONDC, building these infrastructure, which they are not solution by themselves. But if you do not have a UPI, you would not have that Google Pay or a Phone Pay, or you don't even care if the other person has Phone Pay or not, you just still do the UPI. This whole idea, or telecom. If you did not have a telecom infrastructure, probably if I had an Airtel number, I'll wait for you to get an Airtel number to make that phone call. But today, no matter what number you have, whether in India or outside, we still make that phone call and you don't even know it because the infrastructure made it interoperable. Right? Otherwise, we'll all be in one Airtel colony, one Vodafone colony, and other such. So this way of thinking is what I've been trying to do a little bit in the area of commerce, because in commerce, that all we are used to buying things online, from Swiggy to Amazon to what have you. But I think one of the things you realize that the model that we've been doing over the last 2.5 years assumes one thing. Unlike your mobile networks, unlike your emails, this fundamentally assumes that you as a consumer and a buyer need to be on the same platform to do business, as a way to discover each other, trust each other, and do transactions. Imagine if that was the case for emails. If I had a Gmail, I would wait for the whole planet to be on Gmail for me to send an email. But we never did that. It was completely interoperable. Yeah, we did that for telecom. I could be on Vodafone, you could be on Jio, and we can still make calls. But commerce took a different turn. Instead of being interoperable, it took the world of aggregator. The moment is aggregator, you're literally betting on 1 or 2 or 3 big or small aggregators to change it for the whole country. I think e-commerce, societal inclusion for commerce, including small business, is a complex problem. Talk about a Kirana store guy who doesn't even invert his inventory into the system, but he knows it in his mind exactly how many Lifebuoy bars are still left for him to sell. He doesn't have to invert it into a digital system. How do you take that social context and think about online commerce, enabling that for the small seller during pandemic, during lockdown? So it needs a different kind of a solution that we don't know yet. But if we have a way to create that roads, digital rails, for people to come up with solution for those contexts too, just like internet did, I think that's we solve for. The problem of I need something, and the other person saying, I have something, the fact that we don't know each other can solve our mutual needs is a problem at a humanity scale, whether it's skill, healthcare, commerce, sustainability, many such cases. I have biochar, but there's a person who's looking for biochar, but you can't find each other. So all of these are issues which I'm trying to solve with, again, inspired by internet, making them self-discoverable. For what? We don't know. They'll figure out the solutions once they become self-discoverable. Once you reduce the cost of discovery, cost of trust, cost of value exchange, when you bring actors, intentions, and their assets on an open plane, then things will start happening. Internet, there's nothing in the design of internet that'll tell you that there'll be a ChatGPT after 70 years. But you could not have had ChatGPT without internet. And that's what networks do. It creates unforeseeable forestry of value. And that's what we are trying to do, and that's what Beckn does. Beckn is that language, a bit like UPI. It's a language to move money. I'll probably skip that part. But we've been doing so good so far. ONDC, some of you may be aware, we have done 300 million transactions, close to 20 million transactions a month. A lot of work in mutual funds and other areas, apart from retail, healthcare, climate. We've been empowering a few people. So it's one of those things. It's about not making small businesses internet friendly. It's about making internet small business friendly. How do you make the infrastructure work for the local context? And that's what ONDC and a bunch of the other work's trying to do. Yeah, I'll leave some numbers here for you to take a quick glance. Maybe I'll leave the slides behind. But in climate, we are bringing the same thinking, because climate has 2 fundamental problems. I know I'm out of time. So we're doing this in energy, water data exchange, and climate sustainability. Energy, I think we spoke about, it's a digital energy grid. We're trying to do this as creating an energy internet. India is building an energy internet for energy innovations. That's something that we're working with Ministry of Power. The program is called India Energy Stack. It uses the vision that we wrote with International Energy Agency called Digital Energy Grid. Those are some of the work that's happening in India with this idea. Yeah. Now, here's the thing. I talked about this need for an infrastructure. Fundamentally, between the I-haver and the I-needer, as I spoke about, there's a coordination. That cost of coordination is because of cost of discovery, cost of trust, and whole lot of things. Yeah, and that cost has to go down. At a population scale, for any climate-specific sustainability innovations or practices to actually be sustainable and stick. Because climate problem needs to be it's a problem that has to be solved in numbers. Not just about me doing my own. Our individual net zeros are not going to add up to planet net zero. It's going to take a collective effort, and that's a huge coordination cost, no matter what our intentions are. And now, we are not just saying the effort. Technology has been generally net positive on the society. We are taking sustainability effort. Can be more than just net positive. So with India Energy Stack as an effort to do energy transition, we just accidentally stumbled upon this notion that I can sell energy to you as a peer-to-peer trading, not back to the grid. If I have solar rooftop, like a village homemaker, and I have a solar, I can actually sell energy and make some income. And I can do that with this digital rails we've spoken about. But we are going beyond energy transition. India is talking about building energy livelihoods. So sustainability can actually create new livelihoods. And the last thing, I think the planet will still survive. Sustainability is not a planet problem. It's a humanity problem. And that requires a lot of coordination, not just the intentions, and that's where you probably need infrastructure thinking. Thank you. Thank you so much.